A loud buzzing noise sliced through the quiet morning air, pulling me away from the rhythmic clucking of my hens. I looked up, shading my eyes against the rising sun, and there it was, a sleek, black drone, hovering ominously over my prize-winning pumpkin patch. Before I could even fully process the sight, another one appeared, then a third, fanning out like a tiny, metallic invasion force. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It was Martha, I knew it. That HOA Karen had finally gone too far. A defiant grin spread across my face. She wanted a war. She was about to get one. With a determined stride, I headed for my workshop, a mischievous glint in my eye. Those drones wouldn't be spying on anyone for much longer. It all started subtly enough when I, Alex, moved into the quiet suburban neighborhood of Meadow Creek. My lifelong dream had been to own a piece of land, a place where I could connect with nature and grow my own food. After years of saving every penny, I finally found the perfect spot, a charming little house on a sprawling half-acre lot, complete with an old barn that whispered tales of yesteryear. The property bordered the manicured lawns of the Meadow Creek Estates, a community governed by a homeowners association, or HOA, as they were commonly known. I hadn't thought much of it at first. My property was just outside their official jurisdiction, or so I believed. Life in Meadow Creek initially felt like a dream. The air was fresh, the neighbors seemed friendly enough, and my small farm quickly became my sanctuary. I started with a modest vegetable garden, then added a few chickens, and eventually, 2 Nigerian dwarf goats named Daisy and Buttercup. They were small, gentle creatures, and their antics often brought a smile to my face. I loved waking up to the rooster's crow and spending my evenings tending to my crops, feeling the rich earth beneath my hands. It was a simple, fulfilling life, far removed from the hustle and bustle I had left behind. My farm became a bit of a local curiosity. Kids from the neighborhood would often stop by, peering through the fence with wide-eyed wonder. I loved sharing my passion with them, explaining how vegetables grew, letting them feed the chickens, and even introducing them to Daisy and Buttercup. Some parents initially seemed a bit hesitant, perhaps wary of farm animals in a suburban setting, but most warmed up quickly when they saw the joy their children experienced. I even started a small farm stand at the end of my driveway, selling fresh eggs and seasonal produce. It wasn't about the money. It was about sharing the bounty and fostering a sense of community. Then, Martha arrived. Martha Higgins, president of the Meadow Creek Estates HOA. She was a woman who seemingly had an opinion on everything and wasn't shy about sharing it. Her arrival in the neighborhood was marked by an immediate and aggressive campaign to improve the community, which, in her mind, meant imposing a strict, almost suffocating, set of rules. I first encountered her when she marched onto my property, uninvited, demanding to know about those unsightly structures and noise disturbances. She was referring to my chicken coop and the occasional bleating of my goats. I politely explained that my property was not part of the HOA, but she simply waved her hand dismissively. "Rules are rules, young man," she declared, her voice sharp as a tack. "And what you're doing is bringing down property values." I tried to be understanding. Perhaps she was just new to the area and didn't realize the joy my little farm brought. I even offered her a dozen fresh eggs, hoping a gesture of kindness might bridge the gap. She stared at the eggs as if they were a biological weapon, then turned on her heel and stalked away. That was my first hint that Martha was going to be a problem. Over the next few weeks, I received a series of increasingly stern letters from the HOA, citing everything from unapproved agricultural activities to animal odors and unnatural aesthetic disturbances. Each letter was signed by Martha Higgins herself. I consulted a lawyer, who confirmed what I already knew: the HOA had no legal jurisdiction over my property. I politely informed Martha of this, attaching a copy of my property deed and zoning information. Her response was another letter, this time threatening legal action if I did not cease my disruptive activities. The letters escalated to phone calls, then unannounced visits from various HOA board members, all orchestrated by Martha. They would stand at the edge of my property, arms crossed, observing my every move. It felt less like community oversight and more like harassment. I felt a growing sense of unease, a tightening knot in my stomach whenever I saw a luxury SUV with an HOA sticker slowly drive past my house. My once peaceful haven was starting to feel like a battleground. One afternoon, I was out weeding my tomato plants when I noticed a strange glint in the sky. It was high up, almost invisible against the bright sun, but there was no mistaking the faint hum. A drone. It circled slowly, methodically, directly over my property. My blood ran cold. Martha was spying on me. The next day, there were 2 drones. Then 3. They would appear at odd hours, sometimes hovering silently, sometimes buzzing loudly, a constant aerial surveillance team documenting every aspect of my farm. It felt like a violation, an invasion of my privacy. I tried shooing them away, even throwing small pebbles in frustration, but they remained just out of reach, relentless in their silent observation. The thought of someone constantly watching, judging, and documenting my life filled me with a simmering rage. I had to do something, anything, to reclaim my space. That's when the idea sparked. I remembered an old ham radio enthusiast I knew who dabbled in signal jamming. It was a long shot, but I was desperate. I wouldn't let Martha win. I would not let her bully me out of my dream. The drones kept coming, and I knew my plan had to be perfect. The next morning, as the first rays of sun touched my farm, 3 drones once again appeared, their lenses pointed directly at my home. This time, however, I was ready. With a deep breath, I activated the device. A low hum filled my workshop, a subtle thrumming that was barely audible but packed a powerful punch. On my screen, the signal strength of the drones flickered, then began to drop. One by one, the tiny lights on my makeshift control panel winked out as each drone lost its connection. Outside, a muffled thud, then another, punctuated the morning quiet. The 3rd drone, however, fought back, its signal stubbornly clinging on, fluttering like a dying ember. I cranked up the power, a bead of sweat trickling down my temple. This was it, the final push. With a last, agonizing groan from the device, the 3rd light extinguished. Moments later, a distinct thwack echoed from somewhere near the old oak tree. A triumphant grin split my face. 3 down. Martha's little spy network had been grounded, literally. I quickly gathered the pieces of the downed drones, making sure no trace was left behind. A wave of exhilaration washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by a chilling realization: what would Martha do next? The immediate aftermath of the drone incident was eerily quiet. For a few days, there were no more letters, no more threatening phone calls, and most importantly, no more buzzing pests overhead. I allowed myself a brief moment of peace, tending to my farm with a renewed sense of freedom. My chickens clucked happily, Daisy and Buttercup munched contentedly on grass, and the sun felt warmer on my skin without the constant feeling of being watched. It was almost as if Martha had finally given up, admitting defeat. I knew, deep down, that was wishful thinking. Martha Higgins was not one to back down, especially when she felt her authority challenged. This brief calm allowed me to reflect on how I had arrived at this point. My journey to becoming a small-scale farmer in the suburbs wasn't just about growing food, it was about cultivating a life rooted in connection and kindness. Before moving to Meadow Creek, I had worked a demanding corporate job in a bustling city. It paid well, but it felt empty. I yearned for something more tangible, something that would allow me to make a real difference, even if just in a small way. I started volunteering at a local community garden on weekends, and that's where I truly fell in love with the earth. The simple act of planting a seed and watching it grow into something beautiful and nourishing filled me with a joy I had never experienced before. During those volunteer days, I met an elderly woman named Clara. She was a retired schoolteacher with a lifetime of wisdom and a garden that was the envy of the entire neighborhood. Clara taught me everything, from companion planting to the art of composting. More importantly, she taught me about patience, resilience, and the interconnectedness of all living things. She often said, "Alex, kindness is like a seed. Plant it, nurture it, and watch it bloom into something incredible." Her words resonated deeply within me. She believed that even the smallest act of kindness could create ripples of positive change. When I told her about my dream of owning a small farm, she encouraged me wholeheartedly, emphasizing the importance of sharing my bounty and building bridges with my neighbors. Moving to Meadow Creek felt like fulfilling Clara's vision. I poured my heart and soul into creating a welcoming space, not just for myself, but for anyone who passed by. The farm stand was a testament to this. It started small, with just a few surplus eggs and a handful of tomatoes. But word spread quickly, and soon, neighbors were stopping by regularly, not just for produce, but for a friendly chat. Children would bring their parents, eager to see the animals. It became a hub, a place where people could connect and experience a slice of simple farm life. Mrs. Henderson, a sweet elderly lady from down the street, would often tell me how my farm reminded her of her childhood in the countryside. Mr. Davies, a grumpy-looking man who rarely spoke, started buying my hot peppers every week, sometimes even offering a gruff, "good job" on my latest harvest. These small interactions reinforced my belief in the power of empathy. Even with Martha, I tried to approach her with understanding, assuming her aggressive demeanor stemmed from a desire to protect her community, however misguided that might be. I genuinely believed that if she just saw the positive impact my farm had, she might change her tune. I imagined inviting her for tea, showing her around, letting her meet Daisy and Buttercup. Perhaps then she would see that my farm wasn't a threat, but a valuable addition to the neighborhood. But my attempts were met with a brick wall of stubbornness. Her focus remained solely on rules, regulations, and what she perceived as deviations from the perfectly manicured lawns of Meadow Creek Estates. The peace after the drone incident, however, was indeed short-lived. One crisp autumn morning, a new, far more extreme event shattered the tranquility. I stepped outside to find my beloved farm stand vandalized. The wooden display shelves were smashed, my freshly picked vegetables were scattered across the lawn, and the little cash box I kept for honesty payments was gone. My heart sank. This wasn't just about rules anymore, this was personal. And I had a chilling suspicion who was behind it. Seeing my farm stand destroyed felt like a punch to the gut. Splintered wood and scattered produce lay strewn across the grass, a stark testament to the spiteful act. My mind immediately went to Martha, but there was no concrete proof, just a gnawing suspicion that twisted my stomach into knots. I surveyed the damage, a mix of anger and sorrow washing over me. This wasn't just about my livelihood, it was about the simple joy my little farm brought to the neighborhood. The kindness I had tried to sow was being met with hostility. I cleaned up the mess, each broken piece of wood a reminder of the escalating tension. The loss of the small cash box wasn't significant, but the violation of my space, the deliberate act of malice, stung deeply. I knew I couldn't just let this go, yet direct confrontation felt like pouring fuel on a fire. The vandalism pushed me to a low point. The joy I once felt in my work was now tinged with anxiety. Every car that slowed down, every shadow that moved near my property, made me jump. My evenings, once spent planning new crops or enjoying the quiet hum of nature, were now filled with worrying about what Martha's next move might be. Sleep became elusive, fragmented by unsettling dreams of drones and shattered wood. I found myself becoming more withdrawn, less eager to chat with neighbors, always on guard. The fear of another attack, another violation, was a heavy burden. My once inviting farm started to feel like a fortress I needed to defend. However, even in this gloom, glimmers of hope began to appear. The next morning, as I was sweeping up the last remnants of the shattered stand, Mrs. Henderson from down the street appeared, carrying a steaming casserole dish. Her eyes were filled with concern. "Alex, dear, I saw what happened," she said softly, her voice laced with genuine sympathy. "This is just awful. We all love your farm stand." She wasn't alone. Soon, Mr. Davies, the gruff man who bought my peppers, arrived with a bag of tools. "Looks like you could use a hand, kid," he mumbled, already inspecting the broken planks. Other neighbors, seeing the damage, stopped by with offers of help, small donations, or just a few kind words. It was an unexpected outpouring of support that reminded me I wasn't alone in this. Their empathy, their willingness to lend a hand without me even asking, chipped away at my despair. Clara's words echoed in my mind. Kindness is like a seed. The seeds of kindness I had unknowingly planted by simply being myself and sharing my farm were now blooming in my time of need. Their collective support was a powerful antidote to Martha's negativity. Mr. Davies, it turned out, was a retired carpenter. With his surprising expertise and the help of a few other neighbors, we rebuilt the farm stand. This time, it was stronger, more robust, a symbol of community resilience. One afternoon, a young girl named Lily, who often visited my chickens, shyly handed me a drawing. It was a colorful picture of my farm, with cheerful chickens and bright red tomatoes, and a little stick figure of me smiling. Below it, in shaky letters, she had written, "We love your farm, Alex." These small acts of solidarity, the shared laughter as we rebuilt, the heartfelt messages, slowly began to restore my faith. I realized that for every Martha, there were many more good, kind people in the world. Their genuine care reminded me why I started my farm in the first place: to connect, to share, to cultivate not just produce, but also goodwill. Yet, despite this renewed sense of hope, the underlying tension remained. The drone incident and the vandalism were clear indicators that Martha wasn't giving up. Her silence since the farm stand was destroyed felt less like surrender and more like the calm before a storm. I knew she was planning something bigger, something designed to truly force me out. I started installing small, discreet security cameras around the perimeter of my property, a necessary precaution that saddened me. My little haven was becoming a surveillance zone, not because of my actions, but because of someone else's malice. Then came the official notice. Not from Martha directly, but from the city planning department. It stated, in cold, bureaucratic language, that my property was under investigation for unpermitted commercial agricultural operations and violations of residential zoning ordinances related to livestock. A hearing was scheduled for next month. My heart sank. This wasn't just a threat, it was a legitimate legal challenge, clearly orchestrated by Martha through her connections. She was weaponizing bureaucracy, using official channels to shut me down. This was a far more dangerous escalation than drones or vandalism. This was a direct threat to my dream, my way of life, and everything I had built. The letter ended with a chilling line: "Failure to comply may result in significant fines and forced cessation of all mentioned activities." The battle was truly just beginning. The city's official notice felt like a heavy weight pressing down on me. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a direct attack on my passion, my home, my entire way of life. My lawyer, Mr. Chen, a kind and experienced man, explained the gravity of the situation. Martha had meticulously gathered what she believed was evidence, painting my farm as a nuisance and a code violation. She had likely been compiling this case long before the drones even flew, working behind the scenes. The thought of losing everything I had built, of being forced to shut down my farm, sent a cold shiver down my spine. I spent sleepless nights poring over zoning laws, agricultural regulations, and the specific codes mentioned in the notice. Mr. Chen was a tremendous help, guiding me through the legal jargon, but the sheer volume of information was overwhelming. It felt like trying to navigate a dense jungle blindfolded. Each paragraph seemed to hold another potential trap, another way for Martha to twist the rules against me. The legal battle ahead loomed large and intimidating, a stark contrast to the simple, joyful work of farming I so loved. The weight of it all was immense, making even the smallest tasks feel monumental. My energy dwindled, and my spirit, once so resilient, felt chipped away. Despite the fear, I found strength in unexpected places. The community rallied around me like never before. News of the impending hearing spread quickly, and the farm stand, now fully repaired and sturdier than ever, became a focal point for support. Neighbors would stop by, not just to buy produce, but to offer words of encouragement, share stories of their own HOA battles, and ask how they could help. Mrs. Henderson brought me homemade cookies, her eyes brimming with empathy. Mr. Davies, surprisingly, offered to testify on my behalf, praising the positive impact my farm had on the neighborhood. Even some residents from Meadow Creek Estates, quietly, almost furtively, expressed their support. They too felt Martha's iron grip and admired my courage in standing up to her. Their solidarity was a powerful reminder that I was fighting for more than just my farm. I was fighting for a sense of community, for the right to live authentically, and against the stifling control of an overzealous HOA. The children who regularly visited the chickens started leaving me little drawings and notes, promising to help the chickens and save the farm. These gestures, small as they were, fueled my resolve. They reminded me of Clara's wisdom about kindness blossoming, and how a shared sense of purpose could be a formidable force. My initial despair slowly gave way to a renewed determination. I wasn't just defending my property. I was defending the spirit of kindness and connection that my farm embodied. As the hearing date approached, the pressure intensified. Martha, on the other hand, seemed to grow bolder, her confidence radiating through the neighborhood like an oppressive heat. She was frequently seen driving her polished SUV, a smug expression plastered on her face, as if she had already won. There were rumors she was holding private meetings with other HOA board members, undoubtedly strategizing and solidifying her case. She even started walking her small, yappy dog past my property multiple times a day, always lingering, always watching, a silent taunt. It felt like she was enjoying my distress, relishing the thought of my farm being dismantled. Her calculated movements were a constant, unnerving presence. Then, just days before the hearing, a truly disturbing incident occurred. I woke up one morning to find a foul odor wafting from my chicken coop. As I approached, my heart leaped into my throat. The latch on the coop door was broken, and feathers were scattered everywhere. My stomach churned with dread. I rushed inside, counting my beloved hens. One was missing. Just one. My prized laying hen, Henrietta, with her distinctive speckled feathers and gentle cluck, was gone. It was a cold, deliberate act, clearly designed to cause maximum distress. The fear that had been lurking beneath the surface now surged, raw and terrifying. This wasn't just about property values or zoning laws anymore. This was a personal attack, crossing a line that felt unforgivable. Martha had elevated her campaign from legal harassment to something truly cruel and deeply unsettling. The discovery of Henrietta's disappearance was a profound shock. It wasn't just a missing hen. It was a brazen, cruel act that ripped through the fragile sense of security I had managed to rebuild. My stomach churned with a sickening mix of anger and grief. Henrietta was more than just a chicken. She was a beloved member of my farm, a symbol of the peaceful life I was trying to cultivate. The shattered latch and scattered feathers spoke volumes, confirming that this was no accident. The violation of my coop felt deeply personal, a calculated move to inflict maximum pain. Who would do such a thing? The answer, though unproven, echoed loudly in my mind: Martha. This wasn't just about winning a legal battle, it was about crushing my spirit. A frantic search of the property yielded nothing. I combed through every bush, peered under every shed, calling Henrietta's name, but there was no trace. The other chickens seemed agitated, clucking nervously in their coop, sensing the disruption. The incident left me shaken, a cold knot of dread tightening in my chest. My peaceful farm, once a source of joy and solace, now felt tainted by malice. It was a clear message, delivered with chilling precision: Martha would stop at nothing to drive me out. The audacity of the act, committed so close to the hearing, felt like a deliberate provocation, a test of my resolve. Despite the emotional blow, I refused to crumble. The outrage I felt transformed into a hardened determination. Martha wanted to break me, but I wouldn't let her. This act of cruelty only strengthened my resolve to fight back, not with anger, but with unwavering perseverance. I immediately reinforced the coop, adding extra locks and even setting up a motion-activated camera. I wouldn't be caught off guard again. The community's response to Henrietta's disappearance was overwhelming. Mrs. Henderson brought me more food, her eyes reflecting my own sorrow. Mr. Davies, his face grim, spent an entire afternoon helping me secure the coop, muttering about people who don't know where to draw the line. The children who loved visiting Henrietta were heartbroken, bringing me sympathy cards and little drawings of her, which I treasured. Their innocence and genuine sadness fueled my fight even more. The day of the hearing arrived, heavy with anticipation. The small courtroom was packed. Martha, resplendent in a tailored suit, sat at the plaintiff's table, flanked by her own lawyer, a slick, confident man who looked like he'd just stepped out of a legal drama. Her eyes met mine across the room, a triumphant gleam in them that sent a shiver down my spine. She looked utterly convinced of her victory, her composure unruffled. I, on the other hand, felt a nervous flutter in my stomach, though I tried to project an air of calm confidence. My lawyer, Mr. Chen, gave my shoulder a reassuring squeeze, his quiet strength a comforting presence. Martha's lawyer began with a scathing presentation, detailing every alleged violation, painting my farm as an unsanitary, noisy blight on the otherwise pristine neighborhood. He presented photographs of my chickens, my goats, even a few blurry shots of my humble farm stand, all framed to look as unkempt and disruptive as possible. He read excerpts from the HOA's carefully crafted bylaws, attempting to stretch their jurisdiction to encompass my property. Martha herself took the stand, delivering a dramatic testimony about the unbearable odors, constant animal noise, and the blatant disregard for community standards that my farm supposedly represented. She spoke with an air of aggrieved righteousness, her voice dripping with indignation, making it seem as though my farm was a personal affront to her very existence. When it was my turn, Mr. Chen presented my case with quiet dignity. He highlighted the legal fact that my property was outside the HOA's direct jurisdiction. He then called upon my neighbors, who spoke passionately about the positive impact of my farm, the fresh produce, the educational opportunities for children, the sense of community it fostered. Mrs. Henderson, her voice trembling slightly, described how my farm brought joy to her otherwise quiet days. Mr. Davies, surprisingly articulate, spoke about how my efforts reminded him of simpler times and how he enjoyed the fresh produce. The children's drawings were even presented as evidence of the positive influence. It was a stark contrast to Martha's rigid arguments, a testament to the power of genuine human connection over arbitrary rules. As the hearing drew to a close, the judge, a stern but fair-looking woman, announced that she would need time to review all the evidence before making a decision. She set a date for her ruling in 2 weeks. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension. Martha, though her confident smile had wavered slightly during my neighbor's testimonies, still maintained an air of superiority. I walked out of the courtroom feeling a mix of exhaustion and cautious optimism. The battle wasn't over, but I had presented my case, and the outpouring of community support had been truly inspiring. Yet, the memory of Henrietta, the deliberate cruelty of her disappearance, gnawed at me. The judge's ruling would decide the fate of my farm, but Martha's next move, whatever it might be, lingered like a dark cloud on the horizon, promising another, even more extreme escalation. The 2 weeks leading up to the judge's ruling felt like an eternity. Every morning, I woke with a knot of anxiety in my stomach, the fate of my farm hanging in the balance. Henrietta's disappearance still weighed heavily on my mind, a stark reminder of Martha's relentless cruelty. I found myself checking on my remaining chickens constantly, reinforcing every latch, and scrutinizing every shadow. The air around my property felt charged, as if something momentous was about to happen, good or bad. Then, just 2 days before the judge was set to announce her decision, a truly shocking event unfolded. I was out in the barn, cleaning out the stalls, when I heard a frantic bleating from Daisy and Buttercup. It wasn't their usual playful noise, it was a sound of pure terror. My heart leaped into my throat. I dropped the shovel and sprinted toward their pen, my boots pounding on the dirt path. As I rounded the corner, a gasp escaped my lips. Martha Higgins was there, standing inside the goats' enclosure. She was attempting to herd Daisy and Buttercup out of their pen, her face a mask of determined fury. The goats, understandably distressed, were scrambling to avoid her, their bleats echoing with panic. My mind reeled. What was she doing? Before I could fully comprehend the scene, Martha slipped on a patch of mud. Her arms flailed wildly, and she landed squarely in a pile of fresh goat droppings. She let out a shriek of disgust, a sound so utterly undignified it was almost comical, despite the seriousness of the situation. But the real shock came next. As she struggled to get up, covered in mud and goat droppings, a small, dark object slipped from her coat pocket. It was a chicken. Not just any chicken, it was Henrietta. My beloved speckled hen, looking disheveled but otherwise unharmed. Henrietta, startled by the fall, flapped her wings frantically and bolted straight for her coop, clucking loudly in protest. Martha froze, her eyes wide with panic as she realized what had happened. Her carefully constructed facade of righteous indignation crumbled. I stared at her, then at Henrietta, then back at Martha, a wave of stunned realization washing over me. So, it was her. She had taken Henrietta, not to harm her, but to use her as some twisted form of leverage, perhaps to frame me, or simply to torment me before the hearing. The thought sickened me. Martha, I said, my voice dangerously low, what in the world do you think you're doing? She scrambled to her feet, wiping desperately at the droppings on her expensive suit, her face flushing a deep crimson. I was just inspecting the conditions. She stammered, her usual haughty tone replaced by a rare tremor. These animals are a menace. And that chicken, it must have wandered over here from your unkempt property. She gestured vaguely towards the chicken coop, trying to regain some semblance of control, but her eyes kept darting nervously towards Henrietta, who was now safely back with her flock, loudly complaining about her recent adventure. I shook my head, disbelief warring with a profound sense of outrage. Martha, that's Henrietta, my chicken. The one who's been missing for 2 weeks. And you were just caught red-handed, inside my goat pen, with her. The absurdity of the situation, coupled with her blatant lie, was almost too much to bear. Just then, Mr. Davies, who had been passing by my property on his morning walk, stopped short at the sight of Martha covered in mud and sheepishly attempting to explain herself. His eyes, usually squinted in a perpetual gruffness, widened in surprise, then narrowed with a slow, dawning comprehension. He'd heard Henrietta's distressed clucking and had seen Martha's panicked expression. His gaze shifted between her disheveled state and my indignant one, and a flicker of understanding passed across his face. He didn't say a word, but the silent judgment in his eyes spoke volumes. Martha, realizing she had been caught not just by me, but by a witness, visibly deflated. Her shoulders slumped, and she looked utterly defeated. The power she wielded, the strict rules she enforced, had all been built on an illusion of control and moral superiority. Now, that illusion had literally gone splat in a pile of goat droppings. The formidable HOA Karen, who had terrorized my farm and tried to crush my spirit, was exposed for what she truly was, a desperate, petty bully. The next day, the judge's ruling came down. It was a resounding victory for me. The judge, having considered all the evidence, including, I later learned, an anonymous tip about suspicious activity near my goat pen the day before the ruling, likely from Mr. Davies, ruled that my farm was in full compliance with all relevant zoning and agricultural laws. She explicitly stated that the HOA had no legal jurisdiction over my property and ordered them to cease all harassment. The decision was a clear affirmation of my right to live my dream. Martha, humiliated and defeated, resigned from the HOA board shortly after. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. My farm, once a source of contention, became a symbol of resilience and community spirit. The children continued to visit, the farm stand thrived, and Daisy and Buttercup welcomed visitors with cheerful bleats. Henrietta, none the wiser about her brief kidnapping, continued to lay her perfect speckled eggs. Life on the farm returned to its peaceful rhythm, but with a deeper appreciation for the kindness of neighbors and the unwavering strength of a dream. The battle had been long and arduous, but in the end, compassion and community had triumphed over control and cruelty.